You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. A quick announcement. I'll be doing a public conversation with Mona El-Tahawy, the Middle East correspondent on this show. You've heard her often, in order to celebrate her new book, Headscarves and Hymens. What a great title. That's Saturday, May 9th at 7:30 at the Hotel Crosby Screening Room, 79 Crosby Street in NoHo in Manhattan. So drop by. It should be a very fun duet. We have 3 terrific guests today. Susan Ades Stone will discuss the Women on 20s campaign to put the face of a notable American woman on the $20 bill, which would be a first on our currency. Also, attorney and feminist Brenda Feigen was inside the Supreme Court when the oral arguments were made at the hearing on marriage equality, and she reports to us on what it was really like in the courtroom. And pièce de résistance, pal, buddy, and Women's Media Center co-founder Jane Fonda returns to the program this time as our girl, with many R's, inside the White House Correspondents' Dinner. All that, plus the Surrealism Corner and Fighting Words and The Last Straw. But wait, first we need to look inside the headlines. Deep inside the headlines exists what I call the alternate reality that women live in. And when you try to push for social change, of course, the answer is always, well, we need the data. So the good news is we are getting the data. Next week on this program, Valerie Hudson will be a guest talking about the project that she has begun called Woman Stats, which is, wow, is that getting the data? But now I want to talk about another source, which is the World Policy Analysis Center. That's world.ph.ucla.edu. I'll give it again at the end of this segment. They have come out with an amazing new study on the status of women worldwide. It is a resource bank that includes quantitatively analyzable data, policy briefs, maps, infographics, and so forth in 179 countries, and plus the Beijing platform signatories. So, analysis, this is a brief summary by World, shows that in most countries gender inequality continues to be embedded in national constitutions, laws, and policies. More than 150 countries lack protections critical to ensuring women's economic participation. More than 170 countries have legal barriers in place that prevent women and girls experiencing the same rights, protections, and liberties as men and boys. 61 countries provide girls less legal protection from early marriage than boys. 92 countries guarantee paid leave to mothers of infants, but not to fathers, which of course perpetuates inequalities in the burden of caregiving and also perpetuates limited equal opportunities at work. The United States is hardly immune from these concerns. For example, here, mothers are not ensured paid leave to guarantee care for their newborn children, making the U.S. the world's only high-income country not to provide such a guarantee. And while more than 80% of countries in the world, 80%, have a constitutional guarantee of gender equality, the U.S. does not. There's the reason for the ERA alone. But progress is possible. In the last 20 years, more than 95% of the 56 new national constitutions adopted around the world do legally guarantee gender equality. So that should be another incentive for the United States and for the Equal Rights Amendment. Constitutional guarantees are nearly universal in newly passed constitutions. However, since not all constitutions have been updated to guarantee equal rights, 32 constitutions, including ours, still don't explicitly guarantee it. 11 constitutions allow customary or religious law to supersede constitutional protections of gender equality. Families and marriage. Let's look at that. Only 56 constitutions guarantee equality within marriage, and there's been little change in the level of protection over the past 20 years. Legislation also lags behind in this area. 61 countries allow girls to be married legally younger than boys. Nearly 5 times more girls than boys are married below the age of 18 because of inequalities in the law. And then let's look at families. 188 countries guarantee paid leave for new mothers. The U.S. does not. But only 96 countries provide paid leave for new fathers. And 81 countries provide no leave that can be used to meet children's health needs. And an additional 5 countries place the burden of meeting children's health needs solely on women. Then education. All but 7 countries have made primary education tuition free, but 40 countries continue to charge tuition before the end of secondary school. And when cost is a barrier, guess what? Girls are more likely to be kept out of school than boys. 64 countries, regarding economy and work, constitutionally guarantee women protection from discrimination at work or guarantee equal pay for equal work. That includes the United States. Data from the World Bank shows that only 40 countries have legislative protections from gender discrimination in hiring and in pay. In short, this is an important study with lots of graphs and maps in different colors showing what happens where. It's from the World Policy Analysis Center at the UCLA Fielding School of Public Health. And if you go online, it's world.ph.ucla.edu. And next week, we'll talk about women's stats. And now it's time for our first guest. How many times have you said, "Can you break a 20 for me?" Well, there are women who are trying to break open a $20 bill so that the image of a notable American woman can for the first time appear on our paper currency. Here is the executive director of the Women on 20s campaign, Susan Ades Stone. Welcome to the program, Susan.
Thank you for having me.
This idea, a campaign to put a woman on the $20 bill, replacing Andrew Jackson, who was quite a problem, is a great idea, and it's now been introduced into the Senate, Senator Jeanne Shaheen. But it's in being introduced because you supported the campaign and created the campaign. Tell us how this came to be, the Women on 20s campaign, and the amazing voting that has taken place online.
Yes, Barbara Ortiz Howard is a friend of mine, and it was her idea to launch some kind of a grassroots effort to get a woman on the $20 bill. And her initial impetus was to celebrate the women's right to vote centennial, which is coming up in 2020. Mm-hmm. And she thought, what a great way to honor women, especially because they have not gotten their due. And so she put together, she started Women on 20s, and about a year ago I came on board to help her shape it and figure out a way to spread the word, and we came up with this idea of modeling it on a national campaign, like a presidential campaign, where we would have several rounds of voting and invite as many people as we could to participate and vote and say and have their say and try to weigh in that they would like to see women recognized for their contributions.
Right. I mean, certainly other countries do. And it's not just the Commonwealth of England, who obviously has the Queen, but countries have artists and scientists and politicians, and they're male and female. We are the only ones, I think, or one of the only, probably Saudi Arabia's in there, along with us, who have an all-male hegemony. And originally,
I think there are about 11 countries that that feature women on their bills. And we need to show the world that we're committed to gender equality in this country, and recognizing the important role that women have played in our history. If we want to be leaders, in terms of promoting women's equality, I think that we need to walk the walk.
I was just going to say we need to do it ourselves. You bet. The original list of possible candidates included Rachel Carson and Susan B. Anthony and Sojourner Truth and Alice Paul and so forth. And it's now been sort of boiled down to Eleanor Roosevelt, Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, and Wilma Mankiller, the first female chief of the Cherokee Nation, the late Wilma Mankiller, who I knew and was a friend. And I'm rooting for Wilma or Harriet Tubman Moses, who would be fantastic. But the thought occurred to me much early on that Charlotte Perkins Gilman would have been an interesting candidate because, of course, she wrote on economics, and almost nobody knows her outside the women's movement. It was very interesting, the list that you and the voting on the list, because it shows what historical female figures mean or meant to women today, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I think that the four candidates that emerged from our primary round of 15, does kind of speak to, what the way we have featured women in history lessons, because really the ones who came through were, other than Wilma Mankiller, who we added, she was not on that ballot of 15, but the others are ones who have been taught in schools and whose names, were more familiar. Right. So we do know that people were reading about the other candidates on our website, and we will be releasing those voting totals when balloting is over. And it's the candidates that ran at the bottom of the pack, they had tens of thousands of votes. So we're not talking about people who who weren't given some respect here, but in the end, the ones with the hundreds of thousands of votes were people who were well known. So
and
we need to change that. We need to get more of these names to be familiar.
That's right,
and to be taught.
Household words, you bet.
Even the ones who came through. If you read their longer bios, there are surprising things that you don't know about these women, about Harriet Tubman and even Eleanor Roosevelt. People, know kind of just the bare bones about them.
That's right. Harriet Tubman was a disabled woman as well as being black.
Yes.
And yet she led enslaved people who were escaping hundreds of miles again and again and again, and created the Underground Railway. So, yeah. She definitely.
Yeah, and she was a suffragist too.
Of course she was.
Realize.
Of course she was.
And she was an important scout in the Civil War, helping the Union Army find its way. They gave her honored by
They gave her general rank because of that. Lincoln gave her the rank of a general. Yeah.
Which was extraordinary for a person of color and for a woman.
You bet. Yeah. So at this moment, we're around 500,000, 500,000 votes, with more coming in every day. And listeners, you have until May 10th to vote. Tell them where and how.
Yes, well, May 10th is Mother's Day, which is significant, so we're hoping people will honor their mothers and the founding mothers of this country and the mothers of invention and all the wonderful mothers that make our lives possible, right? And they can go to our website, which is www.womenon20s, the numerals 20s.org, and the candidates are featured. You can read about them, and then you can vote. It's a simple, easy, fast process, and we're taking those. We'll be taking those votes, and we'll be petitioning the White House. And of course, we do have Senator Shaheen's legislation, which is kind of a nice endorsement and backing us up. But we're not waiting for that to make its way through Congress because it's not really necessary for changing the portrait on paper money.
The Treasury is the one that can actually change whose face appears on the 20, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's up to the Treasury. So the Treasury could respond to either Congress or the White House, or certainly both, couldn't it?
Yes. Absolutely. And the 20 is up for redesign right now. Every 7 to 10 years, each denomination is taken, and redesigned to keep ahead of counterfeiters. Mm-hmm. So, any aspect of the design can be, taken under consideration.
Yeah,
and
Andrew Jackson was not good news. I mean, what he did to the native peoples, what he did in general, what he was a sort of Wild West violent guy who took kind of pleasure in being I think he rode his horse into the White House at one point. So I don't know. Though
he defied the Supreme Court in enacting the Indian Removal Act, which drove all those Native Americans to their deaths in a march across the country.
That's right.
But he also was famously very against the central bank and paper money. He believed that gold and silver coin were the only true currency, and so this is very ironic. But any woman who is chosen, whether it's the woman who comes out of our process or someone that a citizens committee chooses, that woman is going to represent all of these names and all of these people who have been behind the curtain and have contributed so much. So
and that would be
a celebration.
Yes, it will, and a step in the right direction. Thank you, Susan, for this campaign. Again, the website is www.womenon20s, that's 20s, womenon20s.org?
Yes.
.org.
But
okay.
They can, and people can Google it and they'll find us because we're all over the internet.
There you go. Thanks again.
And they can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
Okay,
Women on 20s.
We will.
Thank you so much,
you
Robin.
You have a few more days to vote. Go and make history. Thanks a lot, Susan, and thanks for being with us on Women's Media Center Live. We have to take a quick break here on Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and when we return, we will be talking with a woman who is an attorney, a feminist, a founder of many groups in the women's movement, and who was inside the courtroom of the Supreme Court at the invitation of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and heard the hearing and the pleas on behalf of marriage equality and reports to us. So don't go away.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
When she was only a student at Harvard Law School, Brenda Feigen already fought to change sexist practices like ladies' days. And then later on, as national vice president of NOW, she took up the cudgels for women again, and she co-founded the National Women's Political Caucus in the early 1970s, and then was director, together with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, now Justice Ginsburg, of the ACLU's Women's Rights Project in 1972. She remains an attorney in practice, a feminist and an activist, and at the invitation of Justice Ginsburg, she was inside the Supreme Court on April 28th and reports to us about the hearing at which marriage equality was being pled before the Supreme Court of the United States. Here's her first-hand report, Brenda Feigen. Brenda, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Robin. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm so glad you're reporting for us. You're our sort of girl inside the Supreme Court. You were there today for the hearing for marriage equality. Tell us, first of all, how you got into the court.
Well, I sent a note to my old colleague and friend, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, saying I would love to be there, and about a month later, I got a call from her office saying they would like me there. So I, along with a few other people, guests of hers, was in the gallery. And,
how cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
So tell me what happened. What happened? Tell us all.
Well, when I got to the court, it was completely jammed outside with people on both sides, but mostly our side. Fabulous signs, fabulous clothes. Just a huge crowd had gathered. Went inside, and there was confronted with different lines going in different directions to get into the actual courtroom. Mm-hmm. Some people are guests, other people are members of the Supreme Court bar. The guests get privilege. So I was hustled in along with a bunch of other people by the various marshals, and then sat down in a designated seat. You can't pick your seat, and you sit there until they gavel the court together, and that takes about 45 minutes once you're sitting there. Mm-hmm. With nothing, by the way, beside a pen and a pad. You can't bring your purse and your phone or anything else.
Much less a camera. I wish these were televised.
Absolutely. Oh, so do I.
Yeah.
So do I.
So, okay, go on. What happened?
Well, there were two cases today. One was the first case of the Michigan statute that prohibits or doesn't recognize same-sex marriages of same-sex couples. That was the first issue. Do same-sex couples have a right to be married? The second issue, which was reached an hour and a half later, was whether a state that doesn't recognize same-sex marriage has to, if the couple that's coming forward with wanting to be recognized has to recognize that marriage, even though it wasn't performed in the state. The great example was the lead plaintiff, Obergefell, who was the man who was married to his first partner, then spouse, and they had to go to a tarmac in Maryland and get married on the tarmac while the husband was dying of ALS. It was horrible, and they would not, and Ohio would not recognize their marriage or put the fact that the deceased was married. So they brought a lawsuit on that issue of making Ohio have to recognize the marriage performed in Maryland.
Right, and this
anyway.
These were the hearings on the subject.
Exactly. This is the oral argument that comes before the decision, which will be the decisions which will come down in June. Mm-hmm. Chief Justice Roberts made it clear that if we win on the issue of a state having to recognize same-sex marriages, then the court doesn't need to get to the issue of whether a state has to recognize a marriage performed in another state. So it would just be boiled down to that one big question.
So he means, in other words, if it was legal in one state, that would be the wide decision.
If the
and
court
then it would automatically apply then to other states.
Well, if they say it's unconstitutional to deprive people of the right to same-sex marriage, then that would apply in all 50 states.
I see.
So, all right. So, but off the boring sort of procedural part of this, there's just a lot of stuff that came up today that I think was really interesting. Roberts, a couple of them were sort of hung up on whether or not clergy could be forced to perform weddings, whether of same-sex people, assuming that they violate their religion in some way. Mm-hmm. Somebody actually asked whether or not if a religious school had housing for married, let's say teachers or administrators, would they have to have married same-sex people even though it violates their religion? Lots of stuff on religion, which really makes me kind of dazed and crazy.
Yes,
oh my God.
And I bet I know who they came from. Scalia.
Well, yes, but a couple of them picked up on it, and I think when one of them said that, then Elena Kagan came back with, well, they don't have to perform those weddings if it's against their religion, just like Jewish rabbis don't have to perform weddings of some religious ones between people who are Jewish and non-Jewish. I mean, it was just a non-issue that the crazies were raising, and I feel like they're groping. I really, today more than before in my life on this subject, I really think they're stretching to try to figure out reasons. For example, right near the beginning, we got into a very long and interesting discourse on ancient Greece and Rome, and whether or not there was same-sex marriage back then. And I just feel like, wait a minute, why are we doing this? Even Kennedy was interested in that. Somebody else, Sonia Sotomayor, was talking about how 17 or 18 other countries recognize same-sex marriage. So we were kind of looking around the world and back into history for what goes on with this subject. One of them, I think it was Kennedy, but maybe it was Roberts. One of them said, this has changed so much in our day. In 2007, Maine did not recognize same-sex marriage, and had a law, or an amendment, I'm not sure which, against it. By 2012, Maine decided that it was unconstitutional to deprive gays and lesbians of the right to marry, and now they are among the states that allow it. So isn't this a too rapid change for the court to jump in now and make a decision when we have, it's only been 10 years. Nobody was determining anything from it. It was just, wow, this has changed so fast. The bad guys, Scalia and
Thomas.
Alito.
And Thomas?
Thomas never says a word.
Okay.
He is just a lost
cause, yeah.
Oh, boy.
So it was Alito.
Alito, yeah. I'm pretty sure we will continue to lose both Scalia and Alito on this subject. They just can't wrap their brains around it. But they just seem to be unable to deal with the fact that the courts need to jump in and not wait for the people and the legislatures to decide how to vote. That's really the biggest issue in this whole thing, is do we wait or do we make it mandatory?
I think it translates into how long can we stall this before the inexorable tide against us of history.
That's exactly right.
Exactly.
I have a great quote, if I can fumble through my notes quickly. I have a great quote from the Solicitor General who argued on behalf of the United States for same-sex marriage. I was in tears listening to this, so this was cool. In a world where gays and lesbians live among us and raise children side by side with us, we can't wait until the majority decides to treat us as equals. And I just thought that was really touching. I mean, he was using the first person plural, and that was interesting. But I can't conclude anything other than everybody wants to be on our side right now.
Oh, that's lovely.
Did you know about the outburst in the courtroom? I mean, swear to God,
no.
Elena Kagan had just finished her comment about rabbis not having to marry Jews and non-Jews when a man in the row right behind me, stood up, started screaming, "You're an abomination, you'll rot in hell," and screaming at the top of his lungs. All of the marshals in the courtroom raced to the row, grabbed him. He pushed into our row. The whole thing was very jittery. I was crouching on the floor in front of the seat. And they finally got him out, pushing and shoving, and you could hear him screaming for about 3 minutes throughout the courthouse while they were obviously trying to get him out.
Wow. Where was he? In the gallery. So somehow...
He was right in the row behind me, and I think he just probably looked like a normal person. You can't have any weapons with you, thank God. There was a lot of concern among the justices about the 73 million children in our country who want to be treated equally, basically whether their parents are straight or not straight. And I think that made a big impression on all of them. I don't think any of them feel comfortable ruling against us. The only issue, again, is whether or not the court can, quote, rush, close quote, the people and the legislatures. I think that's the only open issue right now.
Interesting. So you left feeling sanguine.
I left feeling both sanguine and wowed by the crowds by now just billowing out through the whole mall and everywhere in the street. And then really more tears came when all of the plaintiffs in all of the cases appeared at the top of the steps and went down together to, I guess, where the press was talking to them.
Oh, how moving.
So,
oh, my God.
Meanwhile, Robin, I want to put a personal note in here as I managed to miss a call from Justice Ginsburg's chambers saying, please come and the justice wants to say hi, but I missed that and proceeded on my way here to be able to
well, my God. Well, Women's Media Center Live is extremely grateful sorry that you sacrificed a visit with Ruth to be here. But how lovely, and how lovely to have a first-person report from inside.
Thank you, Robin. I'm honored to be here.
And now it's time for a visit to the Surrealism Corner. Halal is to Muslims what kosher is to Jews. So a halal, that is religiously approved, sex shop that caters to Muslims will be opening soon in Mecca, of all places. That's what the Saudis are saying, and Reuters has published the report. The shops will, quote, strictly cater to Muslim customers in Mecca, and they're being opened after due consultation with Saudi clerics who have approved it as being halal. They will be selling, among other things, oils that are very sensual, and 18 Islamically approved toys, sex toys. Don't ask me what an Islamically approved sex toy is, but I can tell you what it's not. The store will not be selling vibrators as they are not Islamically approved. The first halal sex shop in a predominantly Muslim country opened in Turkey in 2013. But this is the real heart of the Muslim world. This is Mecca. And it will now be possible to get it on right when you're in Mecca. The second item in the Surrealism Corner is coming to us from Moscow, where a family law firm that deals with family law and family problems decided to advertise recently and chose the new way to attract clients, Tittygram. Honest to God, I can't make these things up. Tittygram is a new Russian startup website that markets itself as being Uber for boobs and allows anyone to send a photo with a message written on a young woman's breasts. The words divorce lawyer were written just below the neck of a woman in the case of the Moscow law firm. But to send a tittygram, any customer can pay $9.95, and the model writes their message, maximum 35 characters, on their breasts, which are never fully shown. The nipples are not shown, and sends it on. The model's face, of course, isn't visible either. Most people use Tittygram to send birthday wishes or congratulations messages, said the owners. Models get at least 150 rubles per photo, and the website donates 2%, get this, of its proceeds to the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. They think that makes it all right. Well, there's nothing that we can do about Tittygram in Russia, although I imagine that feminists in Russia are taking that one on. However, Burger King, the fast food chain, which has outlets in Russia, used Tittygram to advertise its services, publishing a photo on Instagram with the words, "I love Burger King. I love Burger King," written on a pair of breasts. Most, but not all of the comments were enthusiastic, but the ones that were not were really not. So I suggest we let Burger King, which is a U.S. firm, know that we are not amused at this use of our sisters anywhere else on the planet, and we're not going to go for burgers at Burger King until this campaign is stopped. Thank you very much. It's time for another brief pause here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'm quite excited because when we return, we will be talking with Women's Media Center co-founder Jane Fonda and my friend and a reporter for once from the inside of the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where she is telling us about all the gossip. Don't go away.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back again. Sleep-deprived, Jane Fonda talked with us the day after the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where she went and sat at one of the CNN tables and has a lot to tell about her take on what went on inside that room. Here it is. Dear Jane, welcome back to Women's Media Center Live. Have you survived last night in the White House Correspondents' Dinner? My God.
It's debatable. It went into the wee hours because after the White House Correspondents' Dinner, there was a Vanity Fair party co-hosted by Michael Bloomberg at the French Embassy, and that went on. And I usually get 8 hours sleep, and I've had about 4, so I'm a little brain dead. But hey, this is a really great party to go to, this White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Yeah.
And I thought that the president was hysterically funny.
I did too.
And I'm told that he writes a lot of his own jokes.
Well, he's damn
But,
smart.
He said people, because he's in, what he called it, he said the last quarter of my presidency, and people ask me all the time if I have a bucket list.
Right.
And so I say, well, I have something that rhymes with bucket. Immigration executive action, bucket. Stricter climate rules, bucket.
Yeah. That was brilliant. And I also loved when he brought on Keegan-Michael Key, who is Luther, his anger translator. I don't know if you...
I don't know, but I didn't know anything about this guy, so I didn't know what the heck it was all about, except that it was funny.
Oh, it's Key and Peele are brilliant. They're two black male comedians, and they're absolutely brilliant. I mean, and they're also, they don't make you wince on the sexist front either. They're just fantastic. And this is one half. And they have a whole routine in which Peele does a superb imitation of Obama, and then Key is his anger translator, what he's really feeling. So this was brilliant, I thought.
But the funniest part of that bit, which I didn't entirely understand, because as I said, I didn't know exactly who he was when Obama just let go and did his own anger.
Yes.
I mean, that was really funny, and his joke about. Bachman predicting, which I think she actually did, Michelle Bachman predicting that he was going to bring about the biblical end of days.
Yeah.
And then him saying, now that's big. Lincoln, Washington, they didn't do that.
Yes.
I mean, he's really, really good at delivering a punchline. Frank, I felt like I was on another planet, Robin. It was like powerful women all around me. It was Wolf Blitzer who invited me to go. I've been 4 times before.
Yeah.
And so I sat at one of the CNN tables with Sylvia Burwell, who's the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services.
Uh-huh.
She's in charge of Obamacare. What a fantastic woman she is.
Wow.
Just remarkable. Then Susan Rice, the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations.
Of
she
course.
was there.
Yes, I've met her.
Right
She's
next
lovely.
door was Valerie Jarrett. Right behind me was Madeleine Albright, former Secretary of State.
Right.
With her, by the way, was one of my favorite actors, Téa Leon, who plays Madam Secretary.
Aha.
Yeah.
So there was the real and the fictional.
And then there was Martha Stewart on one side of me. I mean, it was impressive. There were so many women of color, people of color, and just powerful women all around.
That's heartening. That you did not find that, I take it, on the previous dinners there that you had attended.
No, I was there. I was there in Clinton during the Clinton administration twice, and no, I didn't. And during the Bush administration, that was one of the funnier times, though, because that was the time that Laura Bush did this riff about being a desperate housewife.
Oh.
That was the PBS table that time. It was fun. But I rode in the over to the event with Wolf Blitzer in the car with Marie Harf, who is the spokesperson for the State Department. She looks about 12.
Wow. Wow.
And it was impressive. This very young woman. I don't know. She may be 30, barely, maybe. And she is the spokesperson for the State Department. So that was pretty impressive.
That's encouraging. Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
What was the reaction mostly in the room, and also what did you think about Cecily Strong's hosting comedic routine?
I think people thought she was good.
Mm-hmm.
Some people thought she wasn't tough enough. Some people said that in terms of being, lashing out at various politicos, that she was about average in terms of how tough she was.
Mm-hmm.
Most people thought the president was funnier.
Yeah, I did too.
But I thought she had some really good lines. I'm not going to talk much about politics. I'm an entertainer. I'm not here to tell you anything about politics. That would be like you all telling me what to do with my body. I thought that was a pretty
yes,
good line.
exactly. Imagine that, she said.
So we arrive in the big room.
Yeah.
And I'm with Marie the spokesperson for the State Department, Marie Harf, and Wolf Blitzer, and some very nice woman taps me on the shoulder and says, the president wants you to step into the side room.
Oh, my.
Not you, Wolf. Not you. So I step into this room where a number of celebrities are lined up to meet and greet Michelle and the president.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, who was there? Bradley Cooper,
Mm-hmm.
Connie Britt, Ashley Judd, Laverne Cox,
Mm.
the two guys from Modern Family, Eric Stone Street and Jesse Tyler Ferguson. I mean, we had fun.
Aha.
And Michelle Obama looked so fantastic. She has this new hair thing going that is really.
Yes. I was going to ask
great.
you. I was going to ask you about that. The only problem with that was that she was seated. It was a hairdo that swept everything
Covered
over.
her face.
Yeah, it swept everything over to the right side, and that was the side facing the audience. So we didn't see her face. The camera didn't see her face for most of the evening.
Her face looked fabulous.
Yeah, I bet.
She looked just great, and we had a lot of fun. What that means is you line up me with a martini, which a very handsome man named Major, who was also on the podium and who is, I think, with CBS, got me a martini. So we all had to drink very quickly before we ended up having to meet and greet the president. I hugged both of them. I mean, I'm a little starstruck. Okay, I cried a little bit.
No, well, they're also they know how to put people at ease. They're really lovely. They're sort of funny. They come across very folksy.
Very laid back.
That's right.
Very cool.
When I was part of Gloria's family when she received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, we all had to pose for a picture and chat, and I kept noticing how incredibly short I was, just standing between these two. They're very tall, both he and Michelle.
Well, especially her.
Yes.
She's a very imposing height.
And she immediately stepped out of her high heels to make it easier, so I didn't look so shrimpish. And she towered over me, and I said, with all due respect, Michelle, thank you so much, but you can put your shoes back on. But and they laughed. So that so you got drinks with the in the showbiz crowd in the side room. That was fun. And then you returned to your tables.
And then I returned. The only problem with the dinner, because there's about 3,500 people in that room.
Wow.
I mean, it's a big party, and everybody has a cell phone, and everybody wants to take a selfie with you, and I'd like to ban cell phones in there. I mean, it was so hard with all the selfie desire people.
Well,
but aside from that, it was a really fun party, and
I have to say that you looked absolutely beautiful. You really did. This may be in the guilty pleasure, the guilty pleasure superficiality department, but you looked stunning. What was the dress this time around?
What was I wearing? Clothes. It was a Donna Karan dress. It was a metallic sequin Donna Karan, very tight dress that got tighter as the evening went on. Yeah. Well, I'm glad. I haven't seen any pictures, but it was hard because it was raining.
Oh.
And you couldn't just pull the car up under a porte cochere in front of the building, so you had to. And who brought an umbrella? There were never big enough umbrellas to completely do the job. So there was that. But I'm not complaining. I was just so happy to be there. It was really fun.
You looked absolutely beautiful, and then on the red carpet you said something funny and wonderful, and that was good.
I did. Oh,
well,
good.
somebody asked you. Somebody asked you. Well, what do you think about the events like this turning into celebrity events? And you said, well, it's where the culture is going, for better or worse. And I'm not so sure it's for the better. And I thought, there she is. She's looking like, drop dead gorgeous Hollywood, and out of her mouth comes real stuff. And that's my friend. We have to say before we go that Grace and Frankie debuts on Netflix on
May 8th.
May 8th. I am going to watch.
A good story in the New York Times today.
Yes. It's
about Grace and Frankie. And all the people that have interviewed me who've seen 5 or 6 episodes love it.
Well, how can it not be terrific with you and Lily? It sounds
Thank
fantastic. You. I will be watching with bells on, and I will call you and let you know right afterwards that all my bells are ringing.
So, it's Netflix, which means you have to be a member of Netflix.
Yeah, but
and then you could watch it. You can watch the whole first season in 6.5 hours.
Wow. I'm going to binge. I'm going to binge.
We love binging. I love binging.
I love binging, particularly when it's something like this. I also love you. I know you're in transit. I will let you go. Thank you for being our overqualified inside the White House Correspondents' Dinner correspondent. Bless you, darling. Thank you.
Always my pleasure, Robin. Love you.
Time for one last quick break here at Women's Media Center Live, and I'm Robin Morgan. And when I come back, I am going to have some fighting words. So don't go away.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back again to some fighting words. Now, I know this should be about the hideous earthquake in Nepal, or the migrants drowning off the coast of Mozambique, or Baltimore burning. But brace yourself. This is about spam, and how spam in all its multiple and proliferating forms is driving me insane. Not only spam itself offering me 40 times an hour 10 surefire ways to make my penis bigger or my vagina smaller, cure my acne, make my hair grow, enhance my orgasms, insure the car I do not have, and sell me an obedient, sex-hungry Russian bride, in quotes. But also the online surveys. When God forbid you do buy something, the buyer follows up with relentless questions. How did you learn about our product? Did you like our product? Take a few moments to answer our survey. How was our service? Was our service satisfactory? Would you use our service again? Would you recommend our product to a friend? No, not after these questions. And the unsolicited phone calls, hawking products or charities. New York State has a do not call list, and I put myself on it. But exempt from it are the Police Benevolent Association, and the same for firefighters and for veterans groups, etc., all of whom are indeed very worthy and deserving, but just because I once donated to them, they come back again and again and again, and are even somewhat abusive and not at all benevolent if you say, I cannot right now. They yell things like, what in hell have you got to do that could possibly be more important than helping an officer? Let me think. Then the junk mail. Oh my God, the leaflets, the catalogs, the mailings that inhale forests. If you have ever ordered from a catalog, you're stuck for life. You cannot get off the lists. They sell each other. And now commercials, not only where they used to be, but where they've never been before, in movie theaters. So on top of having paid for your ticket, and on top of the product placement you endure in the movie itself, you are also a captive audience for commercials before and after the film. And billboards. Look, I'm a New Yorker. I live in the city with Times Square. But public space is now so colonized that ads are on and in taxis, as well as on buses and in the sky with skywriting. So you flee home, but all the while flyers and Chinese food menus have been mercilessly slipped under your door. And packaging. The packagers in our country act as if extremely unfragile things like indestructible metal pruners for the garden were going to Mongolia instead of from upstate to downstate New York, because they are mummified in 3 layers of brick-hard, impenetrable bubble plastic that will not biodegrade for about 20,000 years. I have lived in countries where the packaging is minimal. And even now I bring my own cloth bags to the grocery store and recycle the lethal plastic ones that do manage to come my way, and dutifully clip apart the plastic webbing on 6-packs of beer or soda so dolphins don't get snagged in accumulated masses of it. But give me a break, saving the planet one bag or webbing at a time. Then I think, guiltily, how dare I? privileged, educated, European American consumer in the global north. How dare I be so spoiled as to complain about suffocating in multi-forms of try, buy, give, do, purchased, buy, try, spam, when tragic encounters are happening on the streets of Baltimore and a killer quake in Nepal and real suffering so many places nonstop. Wow, I have no right to complain. But then the dots begin screaming out, "Connect us, connect us." Because, in fact, behind the packaging and selling and commercialism is the same powerful, self-entitled, patriarchal, corporatized greed that in turn creates climate change, earthquakes and tornadoes and floods and droughts where they've never occurred before. It's what underlies the poverty and hopelessness that in turn underlie the rage and despair playing out on the streets of Baltimore and Ferguson and Chicago, which, by the way, is still not being addressed by officials or clergy who call for peace. It's what ships our trash to Southeast Asia because it's cheaper to have the trash pickers, all women, by the way, sort through it there for recyclables and more convenient to dump what's left in their oceans, as if the oceans weren't all one ocean, and all human beings weren't one species. And it's cheaper to license factories over there and throughout the global south to produce more stuff for us so that poor folks in, say, Baltimore, can wear cheap clothes labeled with movie star names, while even poorer folks in rural villages 1,000 miles away risk the high seas in small boats to get employment in those factories or to sell knockoff, invented imitation clothing on the streets of Europe, and all this is part of the problem. So I'm done with guilt, and I'm all the angrier now over the spam, the plastic, the flyers, the forests ground up to make catalogs, the try, the buy, the try, the buy. Oh, excuse me, there goes the phone. Someone must be demanding money, attention, time, a purchase. Anyway, listener, if you've ever felt anything at all besieged like this, you are not alone. And that's it for today. Remember, if you're in the New York City area, I'll be doing a public conversation with Mona El-Tahawy, the Middle East correspondent on this show, to celebrate her new book, Headscarves and Hymens. It's a great title. That's Saturday, May 9th at 7:30, the Hotel Crosby Screening Room, 79 Crosby Street in NoHo in Manhattan. And be sure to join us here next week when we'll hear from the founder of Woman Stats, all the statistics you need and want, and from the first woman chaplain in the New York Fire Department, herself an out lesbian woman, and from Leslie Udwin, the filmmaker of the controversial Banned in India film, prize-winning India's Daughter. This program is syndicated, but if you can't find the broadcast on a radio station in your area, you can always visit us at WMCLive.com and get the show plus the archives of all our previous episodes. And there's always iTunes worldwide, where you can stream, download, and subscribe to the show's podcast. Also, be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and Executive Producer of this program, Julie Burton. Senior Producer, Crystal Williams Chancellor. And our founding sponsor, Regina K. Scully. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us, and here's this week's last straw. A North Carolina man, 81 years old, Larry Darrell Upright, don't you love it, died, and his family did an obituary in the newspaper in North Carolina describing him as an avid golfer who loved his family and hated Hillary Clinton. Can you imagine your life being summarized by that? An avid golfer with all due respect to golf, I mean. And so, in order to make him happy in the afterlife, the obit also read, "The family respectfully asks that you do not vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Rest in peace, Granddaddy. I quote. Exactly. That's the last word. Do not rest in peace until you join us next week right here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.